Well, Mark Carney made a huge splash, didn't he? Hopped on American TV, let the homies know in the States that he's planning inadvertently to run for liberal leadership. So naturally, social media has been set ablaze of all the articles, all the receipts, all of the evidence of how this guy is an absolute shill for the globalist class, for those who are the billionaires, as Jugmeat would say. That is who we got. That is what the news has been. The news cycle has been over the past 24 hours. But then another piece of news came across the feed. And that was the fact that an interview Mark Carney did with a Liberal MP by the name of Nathaniel Erskine, who is the MP for East York Beaches, and as those who affectionately like to call it, the beach. He went on his podcast to discuss a variety of different issues. But one clip that came out of this issue near the end was Mark Carney hinting at a potential idea of implementing UBI to supplement the workforce so that they can make the transition from the old world into the new world, or as he liked to call it, the new industrial revolution. Without further ado, let's dive right on into it.
New jobs will be created, but old jobs will be lost. And the question is, what happens to the people in those jobs? Are they ready for the new jobs? How do you get them ready for the new jobs? And look, the lesson of previous industrial revolutions, and we are entering two industrial revolutions at the same time, the sustainable revolution and the AI revolution. The lesson of previous industrial revolutions is what happens is that you go through a long period with huge change of jobs and industries, and that workers are slow to benefit from the benefits of those new industries. Now, that doesn't have to be the case. And what happens is that eventually people get retrained. Eventually new social safety net and welfare systems are put in place to support people. But it happens decades after the fact. The political process lags. I think we should benefit from that knowledge, that history, and do this in real time. Yeah. And it therefore has to be part and parcel of the growth strategy. So a huge element of this is necessarily going to have to be around the skills agenda, and the skills agenda in real time, and make these changes not threatening for people, but legitimately exciting for people, because they have the opportunity to develop the skills that, are in the clean economy, are applying AI across a huge range of those economies, and they're growing their jobs from there. And that means, it means multiple levels of government, as you can appreciate, because the skills is not unique to any level of government. And it means being coordinated with industry. It means coordinated with other stakeholders. And I think it also means, and this is, I don't think I'll draw this out in the report, but it's a broader question. You've thought about this is, well, what does it mean for social welfare and support? Because ideally, look, what's happening, not ideally what's happening, but what is likely to happen is, you have people in their 30s or 40s and the industry's changing and they have an opportunity to shift into a new role. But ideally, this is where the ideal is, they have a partner. They have a mortgage because they have a place to live. Maybe they have children as well. So they have obligations. So how easy is it for them to then take a year out or time out to develop those skills?
Social support.
Yeah, and how do you integrate the both the social welfare system with that, or the social support for that, as well as make sure you have real places, real opportunity to get that training. Yeah, and we need to be thinking about.
So he's talking about here how to transition social supports into this new world where people are going to have to upskill, change their skills, and adapt to the new world that he's talking about is coming, whether it be in the sustainable economy, as he says, or in the AI economy. That is going to happen. So how do we change social supports to support those people in those changes? And this is why I'm saying someone like Mark Carney can be dangerous. It's only because he knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. Love him or hate him, it's a smart guy. Here he is talking about changing social supports to support people who are upskilling and changing things in their life. The title of this video is him talking about how he likes UBI. You listen to that video. Did at any point he talk about UBI? Did he even utter the term universal basic income? No, not at all. But he alluded to it by using different terminology to get at the point of what he sees needs to happen from his perspective. He knows if he ever dropped the term UBI, if he ever dropped the term universal basic income, alarm bells would set off immediately for people, and they would be so fired up. Granted, this is an interview that took place 2 months ago, and in the back of his mind, he was planning to make this run. But he talked about this 2 months ago, and he knows to cloak it in different terminology so that people don't clip it like we just did. And to those who are functioning, thinking human beings, you would have listened to this, and you may have actually been confused listening. Like, Josh, he never said anything of UBI. Didn't even utter the words. So what are you talking about? What's he getting at here? Well, he's talking about this. If we're doing this whole new industrial revolution, as he put it, and people need to upskill and take a year out of their lives in order to change their skills and move on into the new world, he says that we need to change social support so that we can support the people making those changes. And if it's just to support people whose jobs have been displaced, then wouldn't something like, I don't know, EI be enough? Legitimate question. Why do we need to change social supports if he's not referring to UBI? If he's not getting at completely overturning the system? Why do you need to change it? It's working well. And EI is there to help someone get through a year. Why? What's going on? So that's why I find it funny that this is all popping up again. Because over a year ago, Reg and I sat on this show discussing how UBI might be the thing that Trudeau launches as a Hail Mary to win the next election. We could see it happening. And obviously, everything's blown up in the past week. And now we have a new liberal leadership race. And now we have someone like Mark Carney who is looking to take over. And then just 2 months prior to all this, he's on a podcast alluding to something like UBI being necessary to help our country, quote unquote. And if you don't think feelers have been put out around this, if you don't think feelers have been put out about this by other government officials, well, you'd be wrong. We look back at this article from 2 years ago, where they were really putting out feelers to see if UBI could work here in Canada. Here's the Toronto Star article. Canada's considering a guaranteed universal basic income program. And here's what that means. The Senate's National Finance Committee began looking into Senator Kim Pat's proposal for national framework for a universal basic income program on October 17th. Since as far back as the 1970s, Canada's flirted with the idea of a basic income program. The push for a basic income program gained more momentum during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, as the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, CERB, which paid out $2,000 a month to millions of Canadians, raised the possibility of a permanent income program. What is the basic income plan that Canada is looking into? The Senate bill proposes guaranteed livable basic income for anyone in Canada over the age of 17, including temporary workers, permanent residents, and refugee claimants. The proposed basic income framework wouldn't replace or decrease existing health or disability benefits. And how much would it cost? In April 2021, the Parliamentary Budgetary Officer, Yves Giroux, estimated a guaranteed basic income program that provided nearly $17,000 per year for low-income households would cut poverty rates in half, but would cost the federal government $85 billion. Whoa. What was this year's deficit? 61.4? This is what you're looking at. You can agree or disagree, but I think it's very clear in this video that Mark Carney is talking about UBI, talking about inserting new social programs to help people stop working and move on to other places of work. And again, he's really good at cloaking the idea in different framework and different pieces of context so that the alarm bells don't go off. And it was funny, in our episode last year that we did on this, we looked at this exact same article and we looked at the numbers at the time. By we, I mean Reg looked at the numbers and we discussed this. There is a world where UBI can work, but almost any time it's been proposed, it almost always will result in incredible inflation in the country. And this is the little tricky thing they do, is they talk about the tests that they've done, the pilot programs they've done. They even say it in this article, where it says from 74 to 79, the government of Manitoba sponsored a guaranteed basic income experiment across the province, but most attention is focused on the town of Dauphin. There, the Mincome project guaranteed every household a minimum income, meaning if no one in the household worked, they received the maximum amount from the government with a reduced rate for every dollar pulled in by the household. Nearly 30% of the town qualified for Mincome, as the benefit was called. A recent study from 2018 found that hospitalizations, particularly for mental health issues, declined and more teenagers stayed in school longer during the experiment in Dauphin. They've tried it in controlled environments where they saw amazing results. But that's the issue, is they're very controlled. Within a province, within a specific jurisdiction, they saw great results. They never applied it across a country where it would have different economic factors that would factor in. And often with all these projects, they set aside money to try the project. You do it across the country, you don't necessarily have money set aside $85 billion for that. You're likely going to be printing money to make that happen. Thus, the inflationary pressures happen again. Just look at what took place with CERB. $2,000 a month to anyone who was out of work due to the pandemic. That program only lasted 6 months. And look at the impact it's had in our country since. That level of inflation has taken us right out. That was just a small amount of time across the country, only for people who lost their job due to the pandemic. So that didn't go to everybody. Some people just took it anyways, but it didn't go to everybody. And look at what's happened since. We talked about it on the show. There is one way that UBI could potentially work. And it was this. If we took out programs like EI, CPP, old age security, child care benefit, other social welfare programs, if we took those all out and replaced it with one program, UBI, money given to all Canadians, you would actually save money doing that. Oh, Josh, how is that possible? Well, we did the calculations. All the administration that upholds all those different programs would be cut, and only one set of administration would be needed for one program that doesn't need all these qualifiers. If it's UBI, it's supposed to go to everybody, not just a specific group of people. So you don't have to check if they qualify for it, if they actually need it. You don't have this extra level of policing around it. It's just you making sure it goes out properly to people who hold a Canadian passport. That is really the only way, even for a short time, UBI would actually work. But this Liberal government doesn't strike me as the types who would cut all those social programs and replace it with UBI. Just a thought, just a feeling I have. So again, as I started the show, you can agree or disagree to think that Carney is referring to something like UBI or a UBI-like program in his conversation here. But pretty much from what I'm seeing and what I've read in other articles and studies on UBI, he uses all the same terminology and ideas, and then also leads to the point of we need to replace and change social programs to support people to be doing this. And that's the other issue we've seen with different tests. We saw it in PEI recently, and we also saw it in this Manitoba test, is there was all these precursors and qualifiers in order to access the UBI, which means one thing. It's not UBI, it's just BI. There's no universality to it at all, which again shows you that they are just simply trying to stoke even further inequality across the country, which just shows that there's a complete lack of genuineness to the program at all and to the idea at all. And UBI will never, ever be a thing the way that they explain it, that it would be. It would always be some jacked up version of it. It's already a weak idea in the first place, and they would just find a way to give it the weaker version of that weak idea. So again, keep your eye on someone like Carney, because he has support of all Trudeau's ideas up to this point. Who says he's not a huge support or advocate about UBI? I believe in this conversation, that's exactly what he's alluding to. It's a slippery slope. You keep an eye out. Anyways, have yourselves a good one. I'm out.